The whole thing started in World War I.
What is CinemaScope?
The anamorphoscopic lens for the CinemaScope system.
We see more horizontally than vertically.
CinemaScope is destined to bring a new era in the motion picture.
Nice flares, great image quality.
We refuse to settle for something secondary.
Truth of Headings here today to share a big secret with you. A lot of people can't understand it, but I've been shooting anamorphic on the Sony a7S II without a hitch for years because I understood one thing. In this video, I'll show you that one thing to keep your budget under control and overcome the gear acquisition syndrome cloud, or the gas cloud for short, that makes you think you need a new camera before you can record something good in anamorphic. So make sure you watch it all the way through. Before we get to that, let me quickly recap what I covered in the last two videos. I showed you why finding the perfect lens through trial and error isn't the best way to build the perfect anamorphic rig. I explained why dodging the cheapest scopes and going for a lens that complements your style saves you more money than going for the cheap option. I also shared exactly how you can get started streamlining your anamorphic rig and pick that perfect scope. In case you haven't watched the first two videos yet, make sure you do that now because we covered many important points there and you don't want to miss those out. You might be wondering, how is this an anti-gas approach if to shoot anamorphic, you need more gear? The idea here is to get exactly what you need and no more than what you need, using as much as possible of the gear you already have. So let's break down a misconception. This is a big one because it triggers people into thinking they need a new camera, one with anamorphic features to shoot scope properly. I'll show you the camera you have now is not a bad choice to start shooting scope, even if you don't have anamorphic modes. The idea of an anamorphic mode is to make better use of the sensor area while shooting scope. What most folks don't know is how the vast majority of cameras that actually have an anamorphic mode don't give you any real advantage in using it. Here's the situation. Most still camera sensors have a proportion of 3:2. That's taller than 16:9 video, so there's this discarded area on the top and bottom when recording video. Then, in some cases, the 4:3 mode crops into the 16:9 area, instead of giving you some extra height. The result is you get less width and no extra height. To prove that, let's start at the top, looking at RED camera sensors. Apart from the Gemini, all of them have an almost 2:1 aspect ratio, meaning they're wider than they're taller. This is coverage using the largest possible resolution. Notice how wide the aspect ratio. Now, let's pick an anamorphic mode here, like 6:5. 6 divided by 5 simplifies as 1.2:1 ratio. This will turn into 2.4:1 when using a 2 times anamorphic, and that's almost CinemaScope after D-squeeze. See how all the camera does is crop off the sides of the sensor? Using anamorphic mode is effectively giving you less information than you had before. What's the advantage here? You could just as easily do that in post-production. As a matter of fact, Phil Holland at Red User defends you'll get the best results and the most versatility from using as much sensor area as possible and doing all the cropping in post. So how is that any different than you using your 16:9 video recording camera and cropping the sides in the edit? As long as you know your final framing and what part of the footage is being discarded, understanding this concept will free your mind to just go out and shoot. I, for one, have been shooting on the a7S II for years, including tests with the Atlas 40mm Orion lens. If you look at the footage, you won't ever know the hard vignetting I had right at the edge of my 4:3 frame guides. Any coverage beyond the main frame area is a bonus for reframing in post-production. Even Panasonic's full-frame cameras get their anamorphic modes tangled up, introducing a super intense crop compared to the more appropriate full sensor recording. What's the point in getting a full-frame camera to shoot anamorphic if the anamorphic mode itself won't give you full frame? Okay, there is some advantage to this, but I'll cover it in a later video. To remind me of that, like this video. Isn't it crazy how we can start thinking backwards just because of some name like anamorphic mode? Now, what I want you to do is to figure out what kind of character you want from your scope and the sensor usage you want to get from your 16:9 camera. Are you pushing for a 2.39:1 delivery with 2x squeeze scope, leaving you lots of room for reframing, or trying to maximize your sensor area by picking a lens with a lesser squeeze, like 1.5 or 1.33? Let me know your thoughts and plans in the comments below. Those questions should help clarifying what your next steps are, and if you enjoyed this lesson, I've got good news. In my upcoming Anamorphic cookbook course, I'll be giving away my best tricks, such as understanding the difference between anamorphic lenses and adapters, what taking lenses will give you the best results, and what's the best scope that you can get. If you want to get into the course as soon as it's out, sign up for the mailing list at anamorphiccookbook.com and subscribe to the channel. This is going to be the first time I'll be pointing out what works best for realistic setups, instead of staying neutral and letting you reach all the conclusions, or letting you go for the priciest scope. Where else can you learn this from someone who tested dozens of lenses and setups? In the next video, I'll introduce you to the complete plan from beginning to end that you need to follow to build a bulletproof rig and start shooting cinematic footage that strengthens your storytelling. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you got any questions, shoot them in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe for the next video. I'll see you there. Chute Verheddings out.